A very good morning. You are watching Rajya Sabha television. I'm Smriti Rastogi with breakfast news. In the next half an hour, we will get you all the developments from national, international, sports and business front. But before all those details, a quick look at the top headlines. Two terrorists killed in encounter in Pulwama in Jammu and Kashmir. Both belong to Lashkar-e-Taiba. Includes Lashkar commander Wasim Shah. US President Donald Trump refuses to continue signing off Iran nuclear deal, accuses it of sponsoring terror. Iran says it won't renegotiate. UK, France, Germany say they stand by the deal. Home Ministry says deportation of illegal immigrants has to be dealt with only by the centre. Assertion after Supreme Court decides to give detailed hearing to Rohingya plea. BJP Central Election Committee expected to meet to finalize party's nominees for upcoming Himachal polls. Congress sets up 3-member screening committee to select candidates. And India defeat Bangladesh in second group match of Asia Cup in Dhaka. Defeat host 7-0 to play Pakistan next on Sunday. Top Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist Wasim Shah is among 2 terrorists who have been killed in a gunfight with security forces in Jammu Kashmir's Pulwama district today. A joint team of Jammu and Kashmir Police, CRPF and Army personnel had launched an operation in Pulwama's Littar village based on specific inputs about the presence of the militants. The encounter broke out after the terrorists fired at the approaching security personnel. 2 terrorists, Wasim Shah and Nisar Ahmed Mir, have been killed, and the security forces have recovered AK-47 and AK-56 along with 6 AK magazines. The area of the encounter has been cordoned off.
इसी इंफॉर्मेशन पर जॉइंट ऑपरेशन लॉन्च किया गया जिसमें आरआर, सीआरपी और एसओजी जेएनके पुलिस की मिलकर इसको कोऑर्डिनेट सर्च ऑपरेशन लॉन्च किया जो एनकाउंटर में तब्दील हुआ और 1-1.5 घंटे में वो ऑपरेशन कंक्लूड हो गया। अभी वो एरिया की सर्च वगैरह कर रहे हैं और बॉडी रिट्रीव कर रहे हैं और उसमें ये दोनों टेररिस्ट मारे गए। हमारा कोई नुकसान नहीं हुआ और ये एक बहुत बड़ी कामयाबी है हमारे सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस और पुलिस के लोगों के लिए।
US President Donald Trump has refused to continue signing off the landmark Iran nuclear deal, accusing Iran of sponsoring terrorism. The US President also proposed new sanctions. The US also slapping sanctions on Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Iran reacting sharply to the decision, saying it won't renegotiate the deal. The UK, France and Germany saying they remain committed to the deal.
US President Donald Trump has condemned Iran as a fanatical regime and refused to continue signing off on a landmark international nuclear deal. Trump also accused Iran of sponsoring terrorism and proposed new sanctions.
Based on the factual record I have put forward, I am announcing today that we cannot and will not make this certification. We will not continue down a path whose predictable conclusion is more violence, more terror, and the very real threat of Iran's nuclear breakout. That is why I am directing my administration to work closely with Congress and our allies to address the deal's many serious flaws so that the Iranian regime can never threaten the world with nuclear weapons.
He said Iran has already violated the 2015 deal, which imposed curbs on Iran's nuclear capability in return for easing international embargoes. Israel quick to congratulate the US president for his move.
I congratulate President Trump for his courageous decision today. He boldly confronted Iran's terrorist regime. If the Iran deal is left unchanged, one thing is absolutely certain. In a few years' time, the world's foremost terrorist regime will have an arsenal of nuclear weapons, and that's a tremendous danger for our collective future.
Iran reacting sharply to Trump's move, President Hassan Rouhani saying the country will not renegotiate the nuclear deal, also adding that Tehran will double its efforts to expand the country's defense capabilities.
آمریکا در برابر یک تعهد چند جانبه بین المللی موضع گرفت و بلا فاصله کشورهای بزرگ دنیا و اتحادیه اروپا در برابر آمریکا موضع گرفت. آمریکا امروز تنهاتر از همیشه در برابر برجام، تنهاتر از همیشه در برابر توطئه‌هاش علیه ملت ایرانه.
The leaders of France, Britain and Germany warned the United States against taking decisions that could harm the Iran nuclear deal.
Because this is a UN Security Council resolution. This is a plan of action that sets things to be done, commitments, nuclear-related commitments, and only nuclear-related commitments, and that is being implemented. So the President of the United States has many powers, not this one. The future, I believe, as I said, the rest of the international community and for sure the European Union will preserve the agreement.
Russia said it remains committed to the deal and is opposed to the use of aggressive and threatening rhetoric in international relations. Congress requires the US president to certify every 90 days that Iran is upholding its part of the agreement. Trump has already recertified twice but refused to sign a third time ahead of a Sunday deadline. Congress now has 60 days to decide whether to pull out of the nuclear deal by reimposing sanctions. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And US President Donald Trump has said that Pakistan took tremendous advantage of the US over the years but is now starting to have a real relationship. Trump's remarks came a day after Pakistan secured the release of an American-Canadian family from the clutches of the Haqqani terror network 5 years after they were abducted. The operation by the Pakistani forces was based on the intelligence inputs from the US authorities. He said their release was a positive moment for the US relations with Pakistan. Trump had slammed Pakistan for its continued support to terrorist groups and warned Islamabad of consequences if it continues to do so, while announcing his Afghan and South Asia policy in August.
Yesterday, the United States government, working with the government of Pakistan, secured the release of Caitlin Coleman, Joshua Boyle, and their 3 children from captivity from the Haqqani network, a terrorist organization with ties to the Taliban. The Pakistani government's cooperation is a sign that it is honoring America's wish that it do more to provide security in the region.
And Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has raised the issue of reforms in H-1B and L-1 visa processes during his talks with US Treasury and Commerce Secretaries. He also asked them to appreciate the contributions of Indian professionals to America's economy. Jaitley, who is in the US on a week-long tour, held bilateral meetings with his US counterpart and Treasury Secretary and US Commerce Secretary. They discussed Indo-US economic cooperation, in particular, how bilateral trade and investment can be improved between the two countries. The finance minister made a stronger case for the reforms in H-1B and L-1 visa processes and social security contribution so that high-caliber Indian professionals serving America's interest cannot unfairly be deprived of their well-earned money. While attending an event organized by the US-India Strategic and Partnership Forum, the finance minister said that India has the potential to grow at a reasonably high level in the next decade or two, crediting to the structural changes made by the government and a turnaround in the global economy. And the World Bank has praised reforms carried out by the Modi government to boost the economy, terming the reforms as significant. World Bank President Jim Yong Kim has said that the results would reflect in the long term. Kim made these remarks while speaking at the start of the annual meeting of the IMF and World Bank in Washington.
The World Bank has hailed the reforms undertaken by the central government to strengthen the Indian economy. World Bank Chief Jim Yong Kim said that reforms carried out by Prime Minister Modi have been significant. He added that the results would be reflected in the mid- and long-term growth figures. Speaking at the start of the annual meeting of the IMF in Washington, Kim said that the slowdown in the economy was temporary. He also praised GST as a good move by the government.
Our team feels that the slowdown has been the result of waiting for the passage of the goods and services tax. Prime Minister Modi took a very different approach to our doing business report. And his approach was, we are going to move up quickly and we're going to do the things that we need to do to reform the business environment. And the actions that he's taken are really quite substantial. So we'll wait to see what happens on the doing business report this year. But we've been very encouraged with the reforms that he has already taken.
The World Bank chief's statement comes a day after it downgraded India's growth forecast from 8.6% in 2015 to 7% in 2017 because of disruptions by demonetization and GST. IMF lowered India's growth projection to 6.7% in 2017, 0.5 percentage points less than its previous two forecasts. Meanwhile, IMF chief Christine Lagarde underlined the need to redouble the efforts to create a more inclusive global trading system. She said such a system would benefit every economy in the world.
Our suggestion is that it is not time to be complacent. It's time to take those policy decisions that will actually enable more people and more countries to benefit from that recovery that should be made sustainable.
Just last week, the World Bank chief had said that the recent slowdown in India's economic growth is short-term and an aberration mainly due to the temporary disruptions in preparation for GST. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
On to some more news. At least 11 Indians have been reportedly missing after a cargo ship sank off the coast in Philippines in the Pacific Ocean as a typhoon churned in the region. The 33,205-ton Emerald Star had 26 Indians on board. The Japanese Coast Guard said it had received a distress signal from the vessel early today when it was about 280 kilometers east of the northern tip of the Philippines. 3 other vessels sailing near the area were able to rescue 15 crew members. And a look at what else is making news across the world in World Wrap. South Africa's Supreme Court of Appeal has ruled that President Jacob Zuma can face prosecution over almost 800 charges of corruption relating to a 1990s arms deal. Zuma had lodged a challenge at the court after a lower court decided in 2016 to reinstate the charges that were previously discontinued by the prosecutors. The opposition had sought to reactivate the charges over the controversial post-apartheid military contracts which have dogged Zuma for much of his time in the government. An anti-corruption court in Pakistan has postponed the indictment of Pakistan's ousted Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, his daughter and son-in-law in the Panama Papers case till October 19th. This after PMLN lawyers and supporters tried to barge into the courtroom. The National Accountability Bureau had registered 3 cases of corruption and money laundering against Sharif, his family members and Finance Minister in the Islamabad Accountability Court. Ousted South Korean President Park Geun-hye will be kept in detention for the further 6 months, a Seoul court has ruled. She stands trial in a corruption case that toppled her from power. Park was impeached in March and has been detained since then while standing trial on multiple charges including abuse of power, coercion and bribery that also involved the country's tech giant Samsung. The Ministry of Home Affairs has said that the deportation of illegal immigrants, including Rohingyas, has to be dealt with only by the centre, as it is essentially an executive function. It also underlined that the questions regarding illegal immigrants need to be examined, keeping in mind the diplomatic consideration, internal security situation, demographic changes in the country, and duties of the central government towards its own citizens. The assertion comes after Supreme Court decided to give a detailed and holistic hearing from November 21st on the government's decision to deport Rohingya Muslims to Myanmar. The Apex Court also observed that a balance has to be struck between the national interest and human rights as the issue involved national security, economic interest and humanity. The Supreme Court also said that Rohingya refugee problem was of a great magnitude and therefore the state has a big role.
भारत के जो ह्यूमैनिटेरियन कंसर्न्स है वो सर्वविदित है। बांग्लादेश सरकार को रोहिंग्यास के शरणार्थियों के उनके लिए रिलीफ के लिए भारत सरकार ने काफ़ी कुछ समर्थन भी दिया है। बट इस प्रश्न को देश की आंतरिक सुरक्षा के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में भी देखकर उचित निर्णय लिया जाएगा। हमारे लिए जहां रिफ्यूजीज की ह्यूमैनिटेरियन कंसर्न्स की चिंता करने की आवश्यकता है, वहीं इस देश के 125 करोड़ नागरिकों की सुरक्षा की भी चिंता करना भारत सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है।
The court observed that this is a very important matter involving on the one hand the issues of national security and on the other hand the human rights of these people who are clearly many of whom are women, children, old people, etc. And therefore the court will need to hear this matter at length. They have fixed it therefore for hearing on the 21st of November.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in Patna today on a day-long visit to Bihar. He will address the centenary celebrations of Patna University. The Prime Minister will also lay the foundation stone of 4 sewerage projects under Namami Gange and 4 national highway projects worth over 3,700 crore rupees in Mokama. These projects include a 6-lane bridge over River Ganga. The Prime Minister will also address a public meeting in Mokama in the afternoon. And with that, time for a very short break. More news and updates on the other side. Stay with us.
Gyan Chopper is the ancient version of Indian snakes and ladders. This intriguing game was popular among the old, the young, and the rulers as well. The chopper has its origin in the Jain philosophy. It tells the story of virtue, symbolized by the ladders, rewarded, while the vices shown by the snakes are punished. Each square, in turn, also narrates a message of wisdom.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu will be in Ahmedabad today. The Vice President will be the chief guest at the inaugural ceremony of the International Conference on the Journey of Indian Languages, Perspectives on Culture and Society. He will also address the conference. The ceremony will be held at the IGNOU branch of Ahmedabad. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu hosted governors and lieutenant governors from states across India at his residence on Friday evening. Earlier, he addressed the governors' conference at Rashtrapati Bhavan. He asked governors to avoid controversies by adhering to the provisions of the Constitution. The Vice President also said that governors have an important role in preserving, protecting and defending the Constitution and the law. He added that the governors should take on the role of the guide, philosopher and mentor, and they should act as catalysts and facilitators of the change process. The governors were in Delhi to participate in the 2-day conference of governors and lieutenant governors of states and union territories. And the Supreme Court has declined to amend an act which prohibits termination of pregnancy beyond 20 weeks, saying that the issue fell within the legislative realm. The Apex Court, however, sought response from the government on framing of guidelines for setting up a permanent mechanism to expedient termination of pregnancies beyond 20 weeks in exceptional cases. The top court was hearing a plea seeking amendment of the 1971 Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act for abortion of fetus older than 20 weeks involving rape survivors and women with abnormal fetus. A bench comprising Chief Justice Deepak Mishra and Justices A.M. Khanvilkar and D.Y. Chandrachud issued notices to the Ministries of Health, Women and Child Development and Medical Council of India. The BJP Central Election Committee is likely to meet today to finalize the party's nominees for the Himachal Pradesh Assembly elections, which are scheduled to be held on November 9th. Top party leaders including Prime Minister Narendra Modi and BJP President Amit Shah are among the members of the committee. The BJP is seeking to capture the power in Himachal Pradesh, which it had lost to the Congress in 2007 assembly polls. Himachal Pradesh has a 68-member assembly with a history of throwing the incumbent party out of power. BJP is yet to announce its chief ministerial phase, while Congress has selected Chief Minister Veerbhadra Singh for the top post in the state again. The Congress on Friday set up a 3-member screening committee for the selection of the candidates for the upcoming Himachal Assembly polls. The chairman of the Congress screening committee will be the former MP Jitendra Singh, while MP Gaurav Gogoi and MLA Vijay Inder Singla have been nominated as its members. The panel will screen the Congress candidates for all the 68 assembly constituencies before their names are approved and recommended by the State Election Committee for the final nod from the party leadership. The Election Commission on Thursday announced that polls for the state would take place on November 9th and the counting will be taking place on December 18th.
The Congress party is extremely confident of winning both the elections in Himachal Pradesh and Gujarat. In both states, we have seen tremendous response after Rahul Gandhiji's rallies. In Himachal Pradesh, after declaring the current Chief Minister as a face in the upcoming elections.
हिमाचल की जनता का इंतज़ार खत्म हुआ और हिमाचल की पुकार भाजपा सरकार का समय शुरू हुआ। हिमाचल की जनता ने 2012 के चुनाव के बाद हर चुनाव भारतीय जनता पार्टी को जिताया, चाहे वो उपचुनाव हो, चाहे वो शिमला के कॉरपोरेशन चुनाव हो या लोकसभा की चारों सीटें भी भारतीय जनता पार्टी को जिताई हैं। ये अपने आप में दिखता है कि जनता कांग्रेस से दुखी है, त्रस्त है और एक विकास वाली सरकार को चाहती है और विकास के लिए भारतीय जनता पार्टी जानी जाती है।
On to some more news. The Maharashtra government has cancelled the registration of over 4,500 doctors for failing to serve in rural areas for a year. The rural stint is mandatory. The decision to cancel their registration was taken by the Directorate of Medical Education and Research, or DMER. It found that these doctors have refused to work in rural areas for a year. According to DMER, these doctors have even failed to pay the penalty incurred for not serving in the rural areas. In all, 4,548 doctors have faced the action. They graduated from government-run medical colleges in the state between 2005 and 2012 and have neither served in rural areas nor paid the fine. And the Maharashtra government has formed a special investigation team to look into the death of farmers from Yavatmal district. The deaths are suspected to be caused due to pesticide poisoning. A government resolution in its regard was issued on Friday. The Divisional Commissioner of Amravati will be heading the SIT. It is a 7-member committee which has presumed that the death of several farmers is a man-made disaster. The SIT has been given 3 weeks period starting from Friday for the submission of the report. The purview of the SIT would be fixing the responsibilities on the state government officials, organizations involved in it, assessment of quality control department's routine report of pesticide samples, and recommendations to withdraw or ban certain types of pesticides. 20 farmers are reported to have lost their lives in the district due to the exposure to pesticides. The Minister for Communications, Manoj Sinha, has launched the Sampurna Bima Gram Yojana and postal life insurance. Sinha said that under Sampurna Bima Gram Yojana, at least one village having a minimum of 100 households will be identified in each of the revenue districts of the country and will be covered with a minimum of 1 RPLI, that means Rural Postal Life Insurance Policy. The minister also added that under this policy, minimum 20,000 and maximum 5 lakh premiums will be paid. Like this, the people can also take advantage of the postal life insurance. The postal life insurance scheme was started in 1884, but this scheme was expanded after the recommendation of Malhotra Committee in 1995.
तो हर जनपद में कम से कम एक गांव जिसमें न्यूनतम 100 परिवार होंगे, इन 100 परिवार के लोगों को इस योजना के अंतर्गत अनिवार्य रूप से आच्छादित कर दिया जाए, इसका प्रयास हम इस बार करने जा रहे हैं। उसी के लिए दूसरी स्कीम हमने लॉन्च किया है।
And Darjeeling witnessed violence on Friday after clashes erupted between police and the GGM supporters, resulting in the death of 1 cop and 4 others being injured. Violence erupted when GGM workers opened fire on cops after police raided a hideout at Lepcha Basti near Takwar. GGM also claimed that 3 of its supporters were killed in the police firing. However, police denied the report. 6 AK-47 rifles, 1 9mm pistol, 500 rounds of ammunition and bombs have been recovered from the spot. Meanwhile, the West Bengal police has launched a manhunt for Morcha chief Bimal Gurung. Police allege that Gurung has links with Maoist and insurgent groups in the northeast and has procured sophisticated arms from them.
information আছে that Bimal Gurung has links with Maoist and Northeast insurgent groups. ওদের কাছ থেকে যাতে আপনি দেখতে পাচ্ছেন এত হেভি আর্মস অ্যামিনিশন যেটা রিকভার হয়েছে ওদের কাছ থেকে প্রিকোর করেছে for doing anti-national activities.
Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has rejected a plea by the traders to allow the sale of fireworks in Delhi and the NCR for at least a day before Diwali, even as it voiced its anguish over attempts to give a communal colour to its ban order. A two-judge bench said that relaxing the ban order would be against the very spirit of the verdict passed by the top court. It also directed the Delhi police to implement the order. The apex court also expressed pain over certain people trying to give its order a political colour after advocate Prashant Bhushan referred to certain statements made by some political leaders. Traders had appealed against the court's October 9th order seeking permission to sell crackers for at least a day or two before Diwali on 19th of October. Meanwhile, taking a strong stand on the possible rise in the air pollution levels due to the use of the firecrackers, the Punjab and Haryana High Court ordered restrictions on bursting of crackers on Diwali Day and limited it to 3 hours from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. in Punjab, Haryana and Chandigarh. The High Court further directed that there shall be no bursting of crackers even before and after Diwali till the next date of hearing. A division bench directed the authorities to deploy PCR vans not only in Chandigarh but also in Punjab and Haryana to ensure public safety and keep an eye on persons bursting the firecrackers beyond the time limit. And now the sports news. The International Cricket Council on Friday gave the green light to a 9-team Test League and a 13-team ODI League. The move aims to bring contest and meaning to the bilateral cricket. The schedules of the leagues due to start in 2019 and 2020 will now be finalized. The Test Series League will see 9 teams play 6 series over 2 years, 3 home and 3 away, with each having a minimum of 2 tests and a maximum of 5. All the matches will be played over 5 days, culminating in a World Test League Championship final. While the ODI League will be a direct qualification pathway towards the ICC Cricket World Cup and will be contested by the 12 full members in addition to the winners of the current ICC World Cricket League Championship.
Our priority has obviously been to develop an international cricket structure that gives context and meaning across all 3 formats, and in particular in the Test series. But we still have to acknowledge that, the sustainability of Test cricket is still there's a question mark there.
And India has defeated Bangladesh in the second group match of the Asia Cup 2017 in Dhaka. The host lost by 0-7 from the visitors. Gurjant Singh opened the scoring for India while Akashdeep Singh doubled India's lead in the match. Harmanpreet Singh scored twice for the visitors while Ramandeep Singh also got his name on the score sheet. With this victory, India jumped to top in the Pool A with 6 points. On Wednesday, India outclassed Japan by 5-1 in their opening campaign. India will play the next match with Pakistan on Sunday.
42 caps. Especially when you look at them, they played.
And that's all we have for you in this edition of Breakfast News. Keep watching Rajya Sabha television.